Learning should really not be one of them. We should find a way to enjoy the process of learning Spanish so that we don't fear it, so that we don't completely shut down and forget what we're learning, but we actually use that stress as excitement to really get us going, to get us moving, but not to hinder us from moving forward. So I want to tell you a little story about stress and how language learning can also intersect with real life, right? Because hopefully you're learning Spanish because you want to be able to use it in the real world. You don't just want to become really, really good at passing tests, right? So recently I was asked to be on a panel at the Polyglot Conference. And if you're not familiar with this Polyglot Conference, I think I first attended back in 2015 in New York City. And that was when, I think back in the days when we were having events in person exclusively. Now things are starting to come back, but it depends on sort of where you are, kind of how open or not open the world is. But in any case, this year they decided to have the Polyglot Conference virtually again. So I was asked to participate on a panel about learning languages through music, which of course for me, I thought, wow, this is a perfect topic. Obviously, this is what I love to talk about because this has been my experience with language. And really anytime I get an opportunity to talk about something I'm passionate about, I jump at the chance to do it. So I participated in the panel and, it did stress me out just a little bit because I thought, wow, I haven't been at a live event in a long time and I've been doing the podcast, but I haven't really been on a lot of panels. So it's been a while since I've done something like this. And I was kind of like, okay, so I don't really know how it's going to go. I had a little bit of information about the setup. So I was already a little bit nervous, but once I got talking, I got really, really comfortable and I was able to participate in the panel and hopefully share some things that those who attended found useful. And just as I was getting into, actually, no, I think I just finished answering a question and I was sharing some things in the chat, some different resources with the audience that was there, and my phone rang and I had to answer it because I'm a mom, so I have to answer the phone when it rings. So I put myself on mute. I forgot to turn off my video. So the whole time I'm kind of standing there on the phone and they can, they're watching me. I think it was on Zoom. And they're watching me sort of like have this conversation and probably look very, very worried because I forgot to turn my camera off. So I didn't realize it obviously until after I got off the phone. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad at least I was on mute. But my son's school called and he wasn't feeling well. So it was the school nurse. And, I was like, okay, he's not really feeling well today. I think it's best if you come pick him up. So I had to leave in the middle of the panel, so I'm kind of stressed out because I'm like, oh my gosh, make sure he's okay. And I had to leave in the middle of the event and I felt so bad. And I tried to message the organizers and say, look, I'm really sorry. Apologize for not turning off my camera there, but I gotta go. I can't stay for the rest of the panel. So it's just kind of ironic that I had that experience during a language learning event that was already sort of stressing me out in the first place. And then if you're a parent, you definitely know that feeling of getting a phone call and you always think, well, is my child okay? That's your first thought. So to sort of have that sort of stressful experience and then they say, okay, well, he's fine, but you do need to come pick him up. So then I had to leave in the middle of the event. And I'm sharing that just to kind of illustrate the point that, like I said earlier, there's so many things in life that will stress us out, right? And again, it's an appropriate level of stress because as a parent, that stress response is really built into us so that we can keep ourselves and our family safe. But I had to respond to it. I couldn't just say no to it. So, my point is save up your stress sort of bandwidth for things in life that are important and not language learning. All right. So let's talk about how we can take the stress out of language learning and make it less of a thing that we feel like we have to do perfectly, less of a stressful part of our lives and something that we can enjoy. So to not stress about language learning, I have 3 suggestions that I'd like for you to try out. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I'm all about action. So I don't want you to just sit and listen passively and kind of go, okay, that sounded good. I really want you to think about which one of these 3 things can you implement right away to take the stress out of your language learning routine. The first suggestion I have is to set small goals. Now, I know a lot of us think, I want to be fluent. I want to be fluent. That's what I want. I want to have conversations. I want to speak Spanish just as well as I speak English. I want to get this right. But the path to getting to fluency is actually full of a lot of small stepping stones along the way. And those are the small goals that you can actually set and begin to achieve. The reason why I suggest setting small goals is because achievement actually releases dopamine. And you can think of that as that feel-good hormone. It's that thing that, kind of triggers in our brains when we get a notification of, we got a new message. One of our friends liked our post, or, something good happens, or you get a good surprise. I just found $100 in my wallet I didn't know I had. All those little good feelings that we get are a result of a surge in the hormone dopamine, which can counteract some of that cortisol that kind of ramps up and stresses us out. So if we set small goals, we're able to achieve smaller things, and we get to have a little boost of dopamine released every single time we achieve one of our smaller goals. And the reason why this is important is because that little dopamine release will actually motivate us to continue. So if we set small goal number 1, that'll motivate us to move to small goal number 2, goal 3, and so forth. So for example, we can say, okay, first I need to learn the present tense in Spanish, or first I want to learn 10 phrases that I can use in a conversation to introduce myself. Small things like that, because as we begin to chip away at this bigger goal, we get to celebrate each one of those wins along the way. So let's say week 1, I learn 5 phrases. I can celebrate that at the end of the week and then learn another 5 phrases the next week. And by the end of those 2 weeks, I'll have 10 phrases, and I should be able to introduce myself by then. So I'll be accomplishing a small goal of introducing myself in Spanish. And from there, I can go and set another goal. Okay, well, now that I can introduce myself, I'd like to learn how to ask someone else a few questions about themselves. So I'll put together some questions that I can ask, and also begin to review and parse out the responses that I get so that I can understand when people are responding to me, right? Because you have to practice that. It's not something that's just going to come naturally because you've read a bunch of things in Spanish. You actually have to practice listening as a skill, and the only way to do that is to have conversations with people and of course listen to audio. Hopefully that is natural and conversational as well. So that's just a few examples of some small goals that you can set. If this is something that you're going to apply to your Spanish learning, I do want to hear from you. We are on Instagram. You can always send us a DM at Learn Spanish con Salsa. You can also email us at host@learnspanishconsalsa.com. I'd love to hear how you are applying one of these strategies to your language learning. So if you're going to set a small goal and you want some feedback or you just want to share it with us, please feel free to do so. You can also do so in our Facebook group at learnspanishconsalsa.com/